He has been in the forefront of all of this. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, welcome. It's good to be back in your hometown.
Speaking of reprehensible, here's Lindsey. How you doing?
No. I didn't mean that at all.
No.
To me, this is serious. You made a deal on Friday. What was the deal Friday?
Okay, so here's the deal. Senator Flake voted yes in the committee with the understanding that he would like the FBI to interview the 3 Ford witnesses that were interviewed by the Republicans on the committee. Democrats wouldn't help us. It's PJ. Miss Leland, what's her
best friend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Mark Judge. Let's see. Lisa Murkowski said, I'd like the FBI to kind of check the committee's homework. And we also agreed to interview Ms. Ramirez, the allegation not printed by the New York Times.
That was the New Yorker.
Right. Mm-hmm. A week. Once the FBI has done their interviews, they send it back to the Senate. And if they want further interviews, they'll sit down with Senator McConnell and see what we can work out. So we had a deal for a week. We limited the interviews to 3 people named by Dr. Ford and Ms. Ramirez, and we'll see what the FBI finds.
And it's now been expanded out, by the way. The president said...
No, it's not. This is a request by the Senate. So nobody asked to do Ms.
Ramirez. Yeah.
Ramirez.
Or Julie
yes.
Swetnick.
No, nobody asked for that. Not one Democrat asked a question. The senators in question did not feel that was necessary. It's an accusation on his face that makes no sense. So let me go over it again. The Dr. Ford witnesses, Mark Judge, Leland, and PJ, right?
Right.
And Ms. Ramirez. That's it. Do it within a week. Report back to the Senate. And we'll move forward.
NBC News just ran this interview. Not only was one person dead, the other person said they never heard of her. She literally changed her story. Remember, she was saying that there was systematically, almost every weekend. Those are her words.
I can take care of this in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
What reasonable person would go to a party, witness drugging of women, gang raping of women, and go back 9 more times?
And boys lined up.
Yeah, and go back 9 more times and never tell anybody.
And tonight she said, well, I didn't say that he put the drugs in the punch, but he was near the punch.
Well, the FBI...
Why does NBC run this?
Well, NBC, here's the biggest offense to me. They've been a co-conspirator in the destruction of Kavanaugh from my point of view. There was an anonymous letter received by Cory Gardner, the senator from Colorado, with no return address, no information, just a letter accusing Brett Kavanaugh of assaulting somebody in a restaurant in 1998 in Colorado.
Right.
Cory hands it to the committee. Somebody on the Democratic side leaked that letter. It got on the NBC Nightly News, the 4th allegation. Do you think they would have done that?
There's a 5th, by the way, in Rhode Island. That was debunked also.
Okay. Would you think NBC would have done that if this had been a Democratic male nominee?
What if it was Tom Brokaw?
All I can say is that their journalistic integrity has been destroyed over this case.
Okay.
Regarding this case.
It's a very tight margin in the Senate. And you've got Jeff Flake. Who knows what Jeff Flake's going to do? Let's be honest. And then who knows what Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are going to do? Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You fall 1 vote short.
Okay, number one, I don't think we will. Let me tell you why. I don't think we're going to find anything new from this supplemental FBI investigation to take Jeff from yes to no. I think Senator Murkowski and Senator Collins want to make sure that the FBI did their homework to check the committee's work, that our work was good. I think that's what this is all about. No more, not expanding it to all this crazy stuff. Now, what would happen if something really weird did occur and we're 1 vote short? Here's what I would tell the president. I would appeal the verdict of the Senate to the ballot box. This good man should not be destroyed. If you legitimize this process by 1 vote short, woe be unto the next person. I'd hate to be the next person nominated. I would feel horrible that we destroyed Kavanaugh. So what would I do? I would renominate him, and I would take this case to the American people, and I'd ask voters in Indiana, in Missouri, and North Dakota, and other places where Trump won, saying who he would nominate if he got to be president, and see if the voters want to appeal the verdict of their senator.
So if you're saying if you fall 1 vote short, You're saying
I would appeal the case to the American people.
for this election in 36 days.
I would tell
And the president should renominate.
It's up to the president, but one, you would be legitimizing the destruction of a horrible person. I mean, a horrible process and a good person. You'd be legitimizing the worst tactics I've seen.
So in other words,
And
this would be
Senator
the American
Indiana,
people's
Missouri.
referendum. This would be a referendum.
This would be an appeal from a political body to the people who put us here, and see if these Trump states that elected President Trump to do exactly what he's doing on cutting taxes and appointing conservative judges, if they're okay with the decision of their senator. I don't think we're going to get there. I think we're going to get 50 plus. But if we fell one vote short for the good of the nation, I would appeal this to the people of the country and let them have a say.
Senator, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
I imagine they're going to interview two. The third one I don't know much about, but it wouldn't bother me at all. I mean, I've been heard that the third one has, I have no idea if this is true, has very little credibility. If there is any credibility, interview the third one.
President Trump in the Rose Garden today after he got around to taking questions about Judge Kavanaugh, saying that he'll let the FBI investigate whoever they think they need to investigate in order to report back to the White House and then to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Let's bring in our panel. Jonah Goldberg, senior editor at the National Review, Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. Molly, do you think that the president, and apparently there was another phone call made over the weekend from Don McGahn of the FBI saying, look, we're not going to limit what you do. You do what you do. You're the FBI. Is that going to satisfy critics of this whole process?
Well, last week during the hearing, we heard a bunch of people say they wanted the FBI to look into the allegations, essentially the first allegations. Now, it was very important to them that the FBI look into them, even though the FBI doesn't even have better investigatory tools than the Senate Judiciary Committee, which had already looked into them. So fine, people said that's fine to allay concerns. We'll have a week delay while they look into this, and it'll be limited. It won't be a fishing expedition, but they'll look into it. And then as soon as that was agreed to, then it seemed like the goalposts kept moving into how much we can delay and how much more we can put in here. I think it's reasonable to look into these allegations. It's reasonable to summarize them. Shouldn't take more than a couple days, and get the report. Go ahead and vote.
Mara, Mitch McConnell said today you can almost hear the Democrats moving the goalposts. Will they be satisfied? Because this was a deal that was announced by Jeff Flake.
Right.
At the hearing on Friday. Now, I don't know if that's the deal he struck with Chris Coons or that's the idea he came up with after his long conversation with Coons and others, but are they moving the goalposts?
Well, I think that they have focused on the process. They've been calling for an FBI investigation for some time. Now they've gotten one. It could be a situation of beware of what you wish for. You just might get it. Mm-hmm. And Democrats might get the investigation they've called for, but the investigation will be used to make the process look fairer so that there's less political backlash after Kavanaugh is confirmed. As Susan Collins said, this is what we need to do to reassure the public that we weren't just rushing to judgment. Right. And that's why the president said it might be a blessing in disguise.
Jonah, do you think that there's any situation here where the Democrats won't be satisfied with an FBI investigation that doesn't go past the midterm elections?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, first of all, virtually every Democrat on the Judiciary Committee declared that they weren't going to vote for the guy no matter what before any of these allegations surfaced.
And the president said that at the press conference last Wednesday. And
so, you know, when Cory Booker is locked into the position that Kavanaugh is evil before any of these allegations come up, it's kind of hard to walk back from that. I think, you know, unlike some of my colleagues on the right, I actually thought this was not as terrible an idea from Flake. It's not a deal. It's something just Flake wanted. And what is bizarre to me is the scope of this investigation is precisely narrow to make it go through a week, which is what the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee always says all you needed. They say, oh, you need to hold the FBI investigator for just a couple days. That's all it would take. Why can't you do it a couple days? Well, we got 7 days. And yet the Democrats are screaming bloody murder about how this is rigged and a sham. You have Mazie Hirono saying, you know, this is already shaping up as a sham investigation, when it is, while at the same time saying Flake is a hero for doing this. You can't have it both ways. Either Flake is a hero for asking for this and getting this limited investigation, or it's a sham, because what the investigation is tracking exactly what Flake wanted. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The prosecutor who was brought in from Maricopa County, Arizona, to do the questioning at the hearing on Friday, delivered a report to the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee in which she said in part, quote, "For the reasons discussed below, I do not think that a reasonable prosecutor would bring this case based on the evidence before the committee, nor do I believe that this evidence is sufficient to satisfy the preponderance of the evidence standard." She was basically saying something might have happened to Christine Blasey Ford, but there isn't the evidence here to prove that it was Judge Kavanaugh.
Yeah, Rachel Mitchell took a lot of heat for how she handled that questioning, but I thought it was very informative, and her summary of what she learned was what anybody would have learned if they watched that. The accuser had a story where it changed a lot in terms of when it happened, how it happened, the number of people. It showed that she had very serious problems with her short-term memory and her long-term memory, and it showed that she'd actually said things that were in contradiction with each other, such as whether she could travel or not by airplane. So learning all this and saying, you know, at the end this prosecutor says there's no case here. Well, I think anyone could see that there was no case here, but being able to sort of summarize everything that we learned out of Dr. Ford's own testimony was helpful.
But this isn't a criminal case, so you don't need to meet a criminal standard. This is a political case.
That's right. This is political. This is about the court of public opinion, although I like how Rachel Mitchell went from being a female assistant to a career prosecutor as soon as she was delivering the report to the Republicans. But right, this is about the court of public opinion. And what we know from polling, at least, since the hearing, is more people believe her than him. But the most important audience, of course, are those three moderate Republicans who are going to make or break this nomination.
Jonah, why do you think more people believe her than him? Is it sort of the public sentiment falls on the side of the accuser, or did he not thoroughly acquit himself in his testimony?
Yeah, I mean,
because there were a couple of moments where he seemed a little squishy.
I think it's a mixed and complicated thing. We are in the midst of essentially this big social movement, which has mostly been for the good of the Me Too stuff, which has primed people to see things through a certain prism. I also think that most of the media coverage of this has been outrageously one-sided against Kavanaugh, where the real goalpost moving is going on in the way the media covers a lot of it. So it doesn't shock me that much. But attitudes can change. Most Americans sided with Clarence Thomas during the Anita Hill hearings, and I think for good reason. But the way media and the conversation goes can change people's minds one way or the other.
Molly?
Well, I think it's also way too soon to talk about who's more believable or who's not believable. What that hearing was about supplying evidence to support some allegations. No evidence was supplied prior to the hearing. No evidence was supplied during the hearing. We now have an FBI investigation. Maybe there will be evidence to support this claim. We have a lot that goes against it. I haven't seen anyone criticize Rachel Mitchell's laying out of the facts. They say, oh, she was hired by a Republican. Well, if you have a dispute with the facts, that's one thing. I think people are way too focused on emotion and not enough on actual evidence.
If for some reason something came forward that disqualified Kavanaugh or forced him to withdraw, is there any way the president could get a backup nominee through before the end of the year?
I don't think so.
I mean, what if they hold the Senate?
I mean, well, if they hold the Senate, maybe they could do it in a lame duck.
Right.
But no, certainly not before the midterms. And that's the whole other question. What effect would that have?
I'm at the end of the year.
Yeah. I think they could do it in a lame duck if the Republicans held the Senate. But if they didn't, I don't think so.
We'll see. Panel, thanks so much.